everyone, to Breaking Big Blue. I'm your host, Jordan Ron, on ESPN, ESPN.com. Giants reporter. That's kind of what I'm going to settle on right there. Thanks for all the feedback. In regards to the intro, I put it out there. I asked you guys, hey, what do you think of the intro? And most of you really supported it and said, stick with it. That's what you. So I am. I'm going to stick with the welcome everyone to Breaking Big Blue. Maybe a little less shocking because it doesn't play as well, in my opinion, and I know some of you agreed for sure, on YouTube, as it does on the audio version of the podcast. Anyway, this will be an OTA wrap-up. We're going to talk about the Giants pass rush. Just how good is the Giants pass rush? I know it's a spring, and I told you earlier, you can't make judgments on, line play at this point of the process. It's only the spring. They're not in pads. The offensive line is at a huge disadvantage. But there is a reason that you should be extremely excited about the Giants front seven and pass rush, and I'll tell you about it in a few minutes. But let's just do a quick OTA wrap-up, okay? OTAs are over. There were 10 potential sessions. It looks like the Giants on the 10th day, they went bowling instead, so they had 9 sessions over 3 weeks. Basically 3 weeks. We were there 1 day each week. Notables from that. Now, obviously the first-round picks are huge. We'll get to Abdul Carter in a minute. Jackson Dart. First time we get out there, he's new. He's learning the offense. He's running with the threes at that time. Last 2 times we got there, I think it'll be the same this week, Jackson Dart is basically taking most of his snaps with the second team with the twos. So you saw the progression. Now, Brian Daboll hasn't, he said there's a plan. Maybe that's the plan. Maybe he's been impressive. If I had a bet, I would say that's been the plan. Once he learned the offense a little bit, we want him to take the 2 snaps. Jameis Winston is kind of taking 3 snaps with the third team, sneaking in a little bit with the second team, an occasional first team rep. It seems like he's almost like a contingency plan. And Jackson Dart's going to be the second team quarterback all summer, most of the summer. Russell Wilson, clear number 1, first team quarterback. That's clear. We learned that this summer. There's no doubt he's taking all those snaps. Every snap, not every single first team snap rep, because Dart and Winston sneak in there once in a while. But every rep that Russell Wilson takes or took this spring in OTAs, as far as we know, as far as we saw, was with the first team. Jackson Dart, he now appears to be the second team quarterback, worked his way into that. Now, I have seen things, he's been terrible this spring. Jackson Dart, from what we saw, again, 3 practices, has been pretty solid, I think is the right way to say. Right, kind of what you'd expect from a rookie quarterback. At times, he's held the ball a little bit too long. A lot of running, a lot of, taking what maybe would have been sacks. But then on the flip side, you see some throws, you're like, wow, that's a pretty good throw. Or, hey, look at that elusiveness. Look at the way he can run. So you've seen good and you've seen some bad from Jackson Dart. I think it's kind of what I expected and what you should expect from a rookie quarterback, right? Ups and downs. But overall, you see the talent, and you're like, okay, I see why the Giants invested in this guy. He could throw the ball. He can make some really good throws. Where did he go in the last practice? I had him at 9 for 11 with 2 TDs, with a really nice throw to the back of the end zone. I believe it was to Daniel Bellinger. So, I think if you're the Giants, you're pretty pleased with what you saw from Jackson Dart this spring. You're not disappointed. You're not like, wow, he doesn't belong on the field. No, not at all. And there was some crazy stuff that's been out there on the internet. And it's just stupidity at this point. It's super early. He's a talented player. You could see that on the field. You could see he could throw the football. You could see that he could make plays. Now it's about putting it all together, doing it in games, doing it under pressure. We'll see what happens in the summer, see what happens in the preseason, and then let's see what happens in the regular season. And look, the Giants hope not to use him that much in the regular season, let him grow, have sort of that redshirt year. But if they're out of it late in the season, I'm sure we're going to see Jackson Dart. So that's where things stand on the quarterback front. Overall, I think we saw more, and Brian Daboll said we saw more 7-on-7s, but I haven't seen a huge shift in anything that different from the Giants OTAs this year as compared to years past. Sure, maybe they do a little more reps of live drills, but look, they're still an extremely cautious team. When we were there last week, Brian Daboll was flying and Joe Shane, their philosophy, put guys in bubble wrap if they have even the slightest of anything. 8 guys, 8 starters, 8 of 22 were not on the field in the last OTAs, right? We're talking, I think it was 3 on offense, right? Who was it? It was Greg Van Roten, Malik Neighbors, who we haven't seen this spring. Did see him go through some walkthrough period, but any live drills, any individual drills, we haven't seen that from him. So we got Van Roten. So maybe it was just those 2 on offense. And there's another one. There's a third. Andrew Thomas. So 3. Andrew Thomas, Malik Neighbors, and Greg Van Roten. Okay? There you go. 3 significant players, at least 2 hugely significant players, maybe your 2 best players on offense right there, and Andrew Thomas and Malik Neighbors. Now on defense, the other day, last week, we didn't see Bobby Okereke, Dexter Lawrence, who we haven't seen all spring either, right, in live drills, does some individual drills, and basically walks inside halfway through practice, or the 2 of the times I saw him walk inside. We have Kayvon Thibodeaux wasn't there for the last one. I believe he was away at a graduation for a family member. You had both safeties, Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin. They did not participate. Deonte Banks has been limited as well. So, I mean, just think about all the guys that weren't participating. So very, very, let's say cautious, I think is the right word here when we talk about the Giants and their approach in the spring and even the summer. But we'll see if that changes this summer. So that's what, again, we saw in OTAs. Evan Neal officially made the move to guard. That's another thing we saw here at OTAs. And finally, Abdul Carter, the other number 1 pick, right? So I'm sitting here. I'm taping this on Monday. There's going to be mini camp on Tuesday, Wednesday, but the spring is pretty much over. And the spring, I told you earlier, we don't make any grand judgments, any huge overarching projections based on the spring when it comes to linemen and front 7 players, because they're not in pads. They're not going full contact. It's a passing camp, mostly, as Brian Dable said. But what we've seen from Abdul Carter so far, the number 3 overall pick out of Penn State, is that physically, he's a man-child, right? Physically, this is a guy who's going to be able to play at a really high level in the NFL. Just see him move with that size and that speed and that explosiveness. So a lot of times, you know, I remember you get to camp and you see guys on the field, you're like, hey, you know what? This is a big step up for them. Physically, like, you know, this guy doesn't stand out physically. And it's unbelievable because you could see wide receivers in college, like, that guy looks so fast. But then you get on an NFL field and you're like, okay, kind of doesn't look like he has the speed to play in the NFL. And there's been players before. There's been quarterbacks that came. Kyle Oleta came, right? I believe he was a 3rd or 4th round pick. Kyle Oleta comes, and you see him throw at the NFL level. And you're like, hey, you know what? I'm not so sure. And you knew this right away. I'm not so sure he has an NFL arm, that he's going to be able to succeed at the NFL. Abdul Carter is the other end of the spectrum there. You're like, this guy looks like he's freakish in regards to physical ability, in regards to athleticism, in regards to explosiveness. Now, let's see what happens when he has to do it with contact and physicality and he gets punched in the mouth a little bit more. Right? Then let's see if he's running as fast, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rep, when he's getting blocked by an NFL left tackle. But I'm pretty confident after watching the spring. You see him all over the field, all different spots. You see the way he moves, and you're like, wow, this guy looks like he's going to be a really high-end player. And he posted that clip. It was him, Thibodeaux, Burns meeting at the quarterback. Giants, it looks like, maybe, told him to take it down real quick because it came down pretty quickly. But it didn't matter. It already made its rounds. And you saw him. He was sort of at like a defensive tackle. It's sort of like a 3-4 defensive tackle type spot. with, I believe it was Thibodeaux on the outside of him, and he just beat the guard like it was nothing. Right? Real quick move. He's got that spin move also that I think is going to be lethal. You can just tell by the way he executes these things, like how fast and quick he's moving. You're like, oh. And, Bobby Okereke said it. When I asked him, what he's seen from Abdul Carter, he says, I told him, he looked really fast out there. This was a few weeks back. And yeah, I've come away with that impression too. Explosiveness on the even when comparing him to NFL level players is at a very high level. Same thing that I remember when I first saw Odell Beckham Jr., right? 2014. He comes in. And look, there's a ton of explosive guys on the field, right? Ridiculously high-end athletes. These are all NFL players. But Odell Beckham came in, you're like, that dude is different. It's a different, you're at the high end of even the best of the best. And so with Abdul Carter, in regards to his athleticism, that's kind of how I view it. He looks like he's going to be that guy. And so now the Giants have Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeaux, and let's not forget Golston coming over from the Cowboys offseason acquisition, right? Drawing a blank on his first name right now. Still learning these. I don't know why. Number 57, Chauncey. I wanted to say Vernon Golston. And if you go back and you look at Vernon Golston, you better hope he's better than Vernon Golston, because that didn't work out well. That was the Jets draft pick. But Chauncey Golston, he's part of that mix. And I've been guilty of forgetting. I don't think we should forget about him, because that's what makes that group so good. And then you put them with the interior, which includes Dexter Lawrence and a bunch of other guys, right? Darius Alexander's a third-round pick. You hope he's good. Nacho is an okay player. Jeremiah Ledbetter, Roy Robertson Harris, guys they signed in free agency. As long as those guys can hold up their end of the bargain and be competent / good against the run and improve the Giants' run defense, because that's been a liability for these past couple of years, right? Huge liability. Can't just be about shooting the gap all the time. That's why you have guys like Jeremiah Ledbetter and Roy Robertson Harris to help out, so that they can stop the bleeding in regards to that run defense. It's been brutal, terrible for the last 2 years. Okay? So you have that. With Dexter Lawrence, obviously, he's the man in the middle. We have our Dex, is what Brian Burns said. You get the point. He's that guy. He's that dude. He's their dude in the middle. He commands respect. He commands attention. Now you're adding Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux, and then Abdul Carter, who, we might see him on the interior. You might see him at inside linebacker. You might see him on the edges. You probably could see him blitzing from all different places. And that's kind of what Shane Bowen, when we spoke to him this spring, talked about, is his job to come up with ways to best utilize all his guys and his best players. And when it comes to passing downs, now the Giants have to get the passing downs. The most important thing is going to be getting these guys on the field together, and to get it, first getting into those passing downs and then getting them all on the field together so you can maximize that pass rush. And that can become the strength of this team. And I was looking, and I'm like, what is out there to say the Giants can't be the best defensive line, best front seven in the NFL? Or how about just line? And then you look at edge rushers and interior defenders, and I was looking at Mike Clay's rankings. I always look at those. He had the Giants very high. I think they were 9 out of 10 in unit rank at edge and 8 out of 10 on the interior. And the other teams that are up there, they're up there with the top teams in regards to the front and the pass rush. The Vikings were really high. They have Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard, and then Dallas Turner, a former first-round pick, as their third guy there. And then they added John Allen from the Commanders. Javon Hargrave was signed as a free agent this offseason. Harrison Phillips was brought in the year before. So that's a pretty good front also. That's like one of the top fronts. Who's to say the Giants front, within the players that I just named, can be in that range? Personnel-wise, they're in that range. The Steelers, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward in the middle. The Lions have a good front there, good pass rush. The Rams with Jared Verse, Brandon Fisk. They signed Poona Ford as a run stuffer there, and they have Kobe Turner, who has 17 sacks in his first 2 seasons as an interior rusher. The Giants, the way you look at it, they're in there. They're a top 5 right now. Pass rushing unit. Problem is going to be, can they get there? Can they get to those pass rushing downs? Part of that is stopping the run. The other part of it is scoring points. When you're winning, you get more pass rushing opportunities. Like, if you just go by defense, okay? Top 5 defenses. How about top 4 defenses last year? Eagles, Titans, Jets, Dolphins, right? Titans, Jets, Dolphins weren't very good last year. Didn't make the playoffs. I don't believe that the Dolphins made the playoffs. Maybe 2 years ago, if I remember correctly. So you have 3 of the top 4 teams in defense didn't make the playoffs because it's all about scoring points in your offense. You got to put points on the board. They were bad offensively, right? They didn't have a quarterback. So Giants are going to need that strong quarterback play to help their defense. They're going to need better quarterback play. They're going to need to score more points. Their offense is going to have to put points on the board. That's what helps the defense. That's what helps the pass rush. You have to get in pass rush situations, in pass rush opportunities. So in order to best utilize Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeaux, Abdul Carter, Chauncey Golston, the Giants are going to have to score some points. So my point is, the ceiling on that unit is going to be contingent, ironically, on the offense, right? They could be a good pass rush unit, and actually, they were an above-average pass rush unit last year. But you barely noticed it because they finished 3-14. They couldn't score points, and they were losing. And if you go look at league leaders or teams that led the league in sacks, the teams that lead the league in sacks are good teams that win a lot of games, that are winning games late. They have an opportunity to just pin their ears back and go rush the quarterback. Giants have to find a way to get in those situations. That's the key for this pass rush unit. But, I mean, the 4 edge guys that I named, Dexter Lawrence, Elijah Chapman maybe, Chauncey Golston, who's going to move in there, Abdul Carter, who's going to move inside at times. That's a pass rushing unit that is comparable. I would probably put them 3rd or 4th right now. Vikings, Steelers, Rams, Giants. To me, when we're talking just pass rush units, linemen and edge rushers only, not including the inside linebackers. Best units in the league, the Giants are 3/4. That's where I have them heading into the season. Can they move up even higher? Sure. But there's other factors that are going to have to happen to get them there. Stop the run, score points, have the lead. But seeing Abdul Carter, seeing him this spring, seeing his size and the way he moves and the explosiveness that he has, there was a play. I don't think it was this week. It was 2 weeks prior. Jackson Dart, either under pressure or it was maybe a designed run. Anyway, he tries to get out and get to the right sideline. And Abdul Carter just stretched the play out, basically was going to make the tackle at near the line of scrimmage. You're like, oof, that's pretty good. And I believe the coaches, I think it was Daboll, if I remember correctly, getting all excited. Like, great play, Abdul, or, great job. Like, eye-opening to see the way he moved. And Jackson Dart also moves very well. That's maybe been my number 1 most notable observation with him. And you hear, okay, he moves well, he runs well. We knew that in college. Fine. But to see it at the NFL level, it's different. Now, there's a long way to go. Got to do it with full pads. Got to be able to do it after getting hit. Got to be able to do it after getting punched in the mouth. That's going to be the true test. But so far, Abdul Carter is giving you real reason to be excited about this Giants pass rush this year. Right? Because you're adding him to Brian Burns, who, when he's healthy, and he's able, he was banged up all last year. Still a very good player. pass rush win rate, top 10 in the league. The pressure rate, high. Like, still played well. Was banged up the whole year, basically. Playing with all kinds of different things. Slowed him down a little bit. Still was able to be effective. But if you have him at full speed, Abdul Carter, and then Kayvon Thibodeaux, who, okay, maybe he's not, the top 5 pick like what you would hope, and a superstar. Kayvon Thibodeaux is still a really good player in the NFL. He's a quality player, a quality starter in the NFL. He's an above average edge rusher. Okay? He actually plays with more power than I thought. Like that might be some of his strength, is how he is against the run. Right? He might be a better run defender than he is strict pass rusher. But anyway, he's a good quality player. Chauncey Golston proved last year he could play at a pretty high level. That's 4 guys. So now even if Brian Burns is banged up, you guys could just slide in. Right? Brian Burns is banged up. You don't have to play him 90% of the snaps with a bad toe or with a bad calf, hamstring, whatever it may be. You could play him 40, 50%. Keep him fresh, maximize his production in the snaps that he can get on the field when he's banged up. And I'm not saying I expect him to get banged up, but I'm saying in those situations, if one of those guys is banged up, Kayvon Thibodeaux has to miss a couple games like he did last year. You have a guy that can step in there and play at an equal or maybe even higher level in Abdul Carter. And then throw Chauncey Golston in that Carter role where he's going to be moved around. Edge, tackle, inside linebacker, maybe lined up over a center at times, where you can maximize the matchup. If you get Abdul Carter against a guard one-on-one and can create he's going to win. He's going to be able to win with speed a lot. You're not asking him to go overpower a guard in the NFL on a regular basis. No, but if you get to a pass rush down, sort of like the idea of what the Giants did in the 27-11 team, the NASCAR package with Spags. You're talking about OC, Strahan, Tuck, Kiwanuka added to the mix. JPP eventually added to that mix. The recipe is there for the Giants to have an excellent, top of the league, maybe even number 1. I'm not going to say it's there yet. Right? They don't have a TJ Watt on the field. Right? They have some guys that still need to prove it. Maybe Darius Alexander could develop into a consistent pass rusher on the interior. We have to see that, though. And as a rookie, I wouldn't expect too much from a third-round rookie. Like, yes, he should contribute, but, hey, he's not going to be the likelihood he's a super high-end player as a rookie in year 1 on the interior is probably pretty low. But Abdul Carter, he could be a super high-end impact player as a rookie. And actually, I kind of expect him to. And so, you're coming away from the spring. This is what should have you excited as a Giant fan. That pass rush. Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeaux, Chauncey Golston with Dexter Lawrence in the middle. Now, I don't know if they get all 4 of those guys on the field at the same time, edge rushers, but that's what should get you excited if you're a Giant fan moving forward. So that's my sort of OTAs on a grand scale takeaways from everything we saw this spring. We were out of 3 practices, so it is a very limited sample size, mind you. And mini camp is also can be a very minimal, small sample size. You're talking about practice on Tuesday. You'll probably have a full practice. Wednesday, it looks like it's scheduled to be a short practice, which makes me wonder if it's even going to be a real practice, a full practice. So the spring is almost over. What you've seen so far, the sample size we've seen so far, is most of what you're going to see in the spring. Probably one more full practice. So tune in later on this week. Probably Thursday morning, we'll have a recap of mini camp. And then I got get out of town for a little bit. Got some things to do with the family. But we'll be back again the following week with another Breaking Big Blue. As always, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Hey, YouTube, This is a YouTube-only vehicle right now that I'm posting this on YouTube only. Also going to do a behind the scenes for minicamp. The kids call that BTS, I believe. So look on TikTok, Jordan Ron on ESPN. Tell everybody, YouTube, anywhere you get your audio podcast, Breaking Big Blue is available. Make sure your friends listen because you get nuggets here that you're not going to get everywhere else. That is, I'm your eyes and ears at the practices, at the fields, behind the scenes, at the press conferences, talking to the players. That's where a lot of this stuff comes from. Talking to players, talking to people in the organization. Not everyone can bring that for you, but I can. So, like, subscribe, tell your friend, listen to Breaking Big Blue. See you next time. Actually, you're watching Breaking Big Blue. See you next time.